Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and I'm so thrilled to be joined today by Luis Gerardo Mendez to talk all about Netflix's Narcos Mexico. And I actually wanted to start by talking about the work that you did with your longtime acting coach on this role, because you spent a couple of weeks having a lot of conversations and really working through the character, and was interested if that's something that you do for every single role, and if the work that you do with your acting coach tends to be a lot of similar types of discussions and work, or whether it really manifests based on what the character is and what the character is asking of you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. First, pleasure meeting you. And yeah, I think every character demands a different process. In this case, it was like a complete transformation of first of the body. I needed to gain, I don't remember, like probably 25 pounds or something to have this weight, not just in the physical weight of this Mexican cop in the 90s, but the weight was very helpful also for the energy of the character. And then with my coach, with John, I've been working with him for a couple of years. We wanted to understand the central question to work with this character, who was, what is integrity? Like, what is integrity for me? What is integrity for this Mexican cop in the 90s in Ciudad Juarez, this major territory for drug trafficking, where this perfect storm started of all these women getting killed in the border in the 90s, right? So first of all, it was answering that question to me, to myself as an actor, like, what is integrity to me? And it was a surprise that it took me almost 2 weeks to fully understand what is integrity for me, for Luis Gerardo, and then starting the process of answering that question of this Mexican cop. And that, I think, that was one of the most beautiful surprises of the process, to answer a simple question like that can be really challenging, if you do it properly. And I will say that the other fundamental part of the process for creating this character was, I found this real cop from the 90s in Mexico. Now he drives trucks in the US. He's retired now. He's 55 years old, I think. But he was a cop in Mexico, in Ciudad Juarez in 94, doing exactly the same job as Officer Tapia in Narcos Mexico. And I found this guy. At the beginning, he didn't want to talk to me. He was nervous. But then with some, I don't know how I did it, but he finally agreed to have some phone calls with me. And I recorded these conversations. And the way my character speaks in the show is exactly the way this person speaks. I work with my other coach for the voice of this character, and he told me all these fascinating stories about being a cop in Mexico in the 90s, like all these envelopes sometimes he received at night with money on it. And he told me all these stories about if he received this money the next day, he will receive also like a beeper or something, where he will be receiving tasks to work sideways. He was working with the cops, but he was also working with the drug trafficking, like in the show, right? So it was really interesting to have the perspective of a real person that actually lived that life, right?
And the other coach that you worked with, you were also working with on a lot of the physicality and a lot of the movement with the character. And in particular,
Yes.
it sounds like doing a lot of animal association work. And I love the fact
Yeah.
that you found it sounds like there was like a specific type of gorilla that you found that you really connected. And so
Yeah.
what was that journey of finding what the movement and the physicality of this character was going to be?
Yeah, I've never worked with that coach before. My friend Jonathan Tucker recommended me this coach. I'm so sorry that I don't remember the name of the coach, because it was like a year and a half ago, and I worked with him just 2 days. But it was very interesting because, yeah, you need to find that animal that represents the character and the energy. And we were basically playing like kids for 2 days. Like, is this a fox? Is this a gorilla? Is this a lion? And you just like lying in the ground, like playing like as a kid. And I saw these videos of gorillas protecting their babies, and it was it was like a click. It was like, yeah, that's Officer Tapia. Like the physicality of this cop, the way he moves, the way he's like all the time, like touching himself, like and the way he thinks. And in a way, yeah, he's always protecting these women. Like he's trying to protect these women. He's not necessarily achieving the mission, but he's really trying. That was also a very nice part of the process. I talked to this very smart academic in Mexico that's been studying the police in Mexico for years, and he told me the most important thing for you creating this character is that you need to show the audience that this cop at least really tried. you know it's so complex. It's an impossible mission, but he tried, right? And that was something that I found really moving and beautiful, and that worked really well with the gorilla energy of trying, but at the same time this really sad look in the eyes. No.
Did you find as well that there was a real opportunity to develop two different versions of who this character is? Because we do get the opportunity, thankfully, to see him in his home life, to see his relationship. We learn things about the fact that they've tried to have kids. So we know a lot about where he's hoped his life would be. And then the persona that he has to adopt within the workplace is obviously very different. And he's keeping so much suppressed and underneath the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a really close and beautiful reference that was my father. My dad was a doctor that worked in the police in my hometown. In my hometown, Aguascalientes, in Mexico, when I was a kid. So I basically grew up watching my dad working in the police, seeing his friends. He was friends with a lot of policemen in Aguascalientes, and they looked exactly like Officer Tapia, and they talk exactly like Officer Tapia, and in a way, my dad was one of them. He was a doctor, but he was one of the gang. He was one of these persons, like trying to change the world, but at the same time seeing all this corruption around them, because these policemen, they're really trying to do a good work, but they don't have money. They don't have enough money. They get paid really bad salaries, and they need to get more money for their families. And that's the origin of corruption in Mexico, basically. I mean, it's more complex than that, but that's one of the challenging points there, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Like I was thinking about my dad all the time in set, because I remember the way he was arriving home after being in the police station for hours, seeing all these people, all these problems, all this really dark energy, and then just being home with his wife, my mom, and with us, trying to be funny or singing or trying to be light with us. But I definitely could feel that his job wasn't easy. So I don't know. It was really easy for me to relate to the different versions of this character, being working with the police, working with the drug traffickers, and also being with his wife, trying to be just a normal person. But he's dealing with so much that his relationship with his wife eventually is going to be broken too, right? So that was really interesting to play. And I was very lucky, because the actress that plays my wife is my best friend in real life, Damayanti Quintanar. We went to acting school together. She's my best friend. We lived together for like 5 years. She was my roommate. So it was really easy to develop these like confidence and just trust the other person. And I don't know, that was a really simple part of the process, because Damayanti, my friend, she made it really easy.
And as your character finds himself pulled further and further into the space where he's really just trying to figure out what's going on with all these women who are being murdered, it also creates such a disconnect between him and other people. Again,
Yes.
both at home and in the workplace. And there's a lot of moments that really allow you to explore the internal side of what that looks like, whether it's him sitting at the bar with his friend, they're all talking and he's just completely outside of the conversation, or the numerous scenes that you get to do where it's just you in the car. So how did you approach really finding a lot of the internal exploration of the way that he just becomes so much more disconnected from everybody around him?
Yeah. I don't know, like the obsession of really wanted to make a difference. Like for me, it was very moving to see this character as the eyes of my country. Like I feel like Victor Tapia represents Mexico and represents all of us. We are trying to make a difference. We are making a difference day by day, but suddenly we realize that the problem is so much bigger than we thought, and that's really painful, and that's really dark, and that's really that takes all your energy from you, like trying to the situation in Mexico is so complex, because all these the economics, the social, the politics involved in drug trafficking, it's we could do 25 seasons of Narcos to try to understand what's happening. So I was trying to do that, like trying to really understand what's happening in this specific case of these women getting killed in the border. But I think it's just the tip of the iceberg of what's happening in the country, right? So I don't know. I was thinking a lot in that, in my own experiences as an actor, as an activist in Mexico, trying to change things, trying to talk to politicians, trying to make a change with government, and every single time you're like facing a wall every single time, and that's really frustrating. Like I live between Mexico City and LA, and it's really frustrating for me to see how sometimes in the US, when there's people organizing to demand changes in the government, they usually get it. Like usually the government is like, you know what? Yeah, we're wrong. We're gonna change these things. In Mexico, that's not the case. It's really hard to make substantial changes, and that's really frustrating. And I don't know. Like I was trying to put all that energy into this character, trying to change this thing and being obsessed with making a difference, and just no making it possible. Yeah.
And with how complicated it is, I was interested in how you came up with his moral compass and what the lines were for him, because, going back to what you were saying earlier about the question of what is integrity, it's so different because he's responding to so many external situations and circumstances around him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because for him it's okay to work with the cops and also with the drug traffickers, because that gives him money to be, like living with his wife and having a better life. I wouldn't say a nice life, but a better life. That's okay. But that someone is killing girls in the alleys at night, that's not cool. That's not okay. That's why answering this what is integrity question so relevant, because it's possible to think like that, right? Like I'm okay with this situation, and I know it's wrong for some people, but this is what I need to do to be alive, but this is definitely not okay, and I'm not gonna let someone keep killing these women. Like I don't know, like I could show you like my notebook with all the and like answering all these questions, trying to understand how to play this really gray character, because he lives in a really gray thin line of right and wrong. But I think as an actor, those are the most interesting characters to play.
And you've spoken about how, these are news stories that you remember happening at the time in the 90s.
Yeah.
But what were the spaces or stories or aspects kind of in the wider context of the story that Narcos is telling that were useful for you to just dive in a little bit further and research a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with all these headlines, right? Like the Christine assassination of Cardenal Posadas Ocampo. Those were the headlines in Mexico when I was a kid. I didn't fully understand what was happening because I was like 10 years old or something. But specifically for this case, for the women getting killed in Ciudad Juarez in the border, it was actually pretty easy because that is still the most urgent problem to solve in my country. Like every day, 10 women get killed in Mexico. Every single day, 10 women get killed in Mexico. And those are the headlines I'm reading today, right? So it's just the same thing. It's just thinking about, this is the moment where all this tragedy that I'm living right now started. Like all my girlfriends, like all my girlfriends, like actresses, they're really involved in this movement of changing these things, of demanding consequences for these criminals, or changing the legislation in the government. So I don't know. It was just very special for me to be able to take all those things and just create a character that represents that movement.
You also had an extraordinarily long time to build your relationship with this character because of the shutdown as well. It sounds like it was originally going to be about 6 months or so. And then you basically were with this character for over a year and a half in the end, based on when you actually went into production. And was that a completely different experience, just with the amount of time that you spent with him and the relationship that you ended up with him as a character in the end because of that?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy to start because when the producers asked me to gain the 30 pounds or whatever, I was like, this is going to be great because it's going to be 6 months. It's going to be great for the character. I've never done it. It's going to be fun. And then after 2 months of shooting, COVID happened. And I remember calling Carlo Bernard, the showrunner, like, hey, man, what am I supposed to do with this belly? And he was like, well, you can get rid of it and then gain it again when we go back, or you can just stay like that. So basically I stayed with the same weight for a year and a half. And that was a very particular experience because I wasn't feeling pretty well. I was feeling pretty heavy. I had like heart palpitations at night. I mean, like just that body for a year and a half and being in the mindset of things. But I would say it was beautiful. I think it's probably one of the most beautiful characters I ever done, and I really enjoyed playing it, even if it was a year and a half. I mean, I have no complaints with that. The problem, all my friends are telling me that sometimes I still speak like him, which I don't love, but whatever.
I also wanted to ask you something that is a little bit of a spoiler, talking about the end of the final episode. And the moment where he's confronted and he knows that he's about to get shot, and he's already made his peace with that, and he's already had an entire dialogue within himself, and he's known for a long time that that's a very realistic eventuality for him. And for you, with him as a character, what was the moment that you really felt like he had made peace and really accepted that? Because when someone does show up and it finally happens at the end, he's already in that headspace. He's not trying to push back. He's not trying to resist it. He knows exactly what's going to happen in this moment, which was really interesting to watch play out.
Yeah, I love this question. No one has asked that before. And I think you're going to be surprised because it's really early. I think the first time he calls the DEA to be an informant, he knows he's going to die. He knows he's going to be dead, because he's been working in that universe for years. He knows that they're going to find out, So I think that first phone call asking for Walt Breslin, the character of Scoot McNairy, when he's very nervous about, hey, can I get some blood tests, and can if I get you information, can you get me these things and blah, blah, blah. I think he knows that that's the no turning point.
It was such a fascinating scene to watch. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about your work as a producer within the industry. Your production company also just recently signed a first look deal. And kind of as you evolve as an artist and a storyteller, what are the types of stories that are most important for you to be telling? Because you even recently said that you see yourself more as a storyteller than as an actor at this point, because you are so much in both of those worlds. And so I was just interested in hearing a little bit more about that for you and your relationship to your work as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I've been producing almost everything I do in Mexico for the past 5 years. Like Netflix, I did a Netflix show called Club of Crows, a couple of movies, and I don't know. I realized that I've been an actor for almost 20 years, and I've been telling someone else's stories, which I love. I love being an actor. I love like telling stories from other minds and points of views. But I don't know. I felt a couple of years ago that I have my own stories that I want to tell. I have very personal stories that I want to tell. I've had a crazy life, like I'm from a very small town, city in the middle of Mexico, from a very Catholic family, and I've seen some stuff, and I want to talk about that, and I'm also interested about telling stories about Mexican people making a difference in the world. Like we have so many stories that no one knows. Like even us as Mexicans, we are not aware of all the fascinating stories we have in the past. And I'm really obsessed with telling those stories. I'm already working in a couple of projects with Paramount Plus for developing this. It's a movie and a show. I can tell you that much because they will kill me. But yeah, it's basically that. It's story about really inspiring Mexican people now or in the past that I think are interesting to watch and to observe.
And when you're on a project where you're both acting in it and producing, from the way that you tend to talk about it, it sounds like frequently for you, you need to kind of really separate the two roles, particularly once you get into production, that it's like the
Yeah,
actor hat comes on, the producer hat needs to kind of stay in another room. Was that
yeah.
something that you discovered very, very early on for yourself when you started producing, or how did you figure out that that was a necessity for you?
Yes, yes. I mean, panic attacks helped me to discover that I needed to do that, basically. But it's actually not that hard. What I do is when I'm producing, I tell my team and the crew like 2 weeks before we start production, the producer is gone, right? And then it's gonna be just the actor. After when we start shooting, after 2 weeks, like the first 2 weeks of creating a character on set are fundamental. Then I'm more relaxed, and if I'm on set and there's a problem with something, I can try to solve it, and I can get involved in solving the problem. But the first 2 weeks is like, don't talk to me. I don't want to know about any problems, and then it's more easy for me to relay on the team and work as a producer. But yeah, it seems. I mean, I love the work, and I love being in front of the cameras. But lately, I like more being behind the cameras, and so yeah, I don't know. I love the whole industry and the whole process.
And because to your point earlier, you have been working as an actor within this industry for 20 years. What are the biggest things that you still had the opportunity to learn, or new things like you felt like you were doing as an actor working on Narcos?
First of all, the size of the production. Like Narcos is one of the biggest shows in the planet. Period. It's huge. It's massive. Like the amount of people working in the show is pretty impressive. The directors we had in this season are probably the best directors in Latin America, and probably some of the best directors in the world. Especially Alejandra Marquez, she did episode 5 and 6, and Wagner Moura, who also played Pablo Escobar in the first seasons. He's also an extraordinary director. Like working with these directors and really creating this tension in the scenes with these really talented directors and actors was really, I don't know, like really interesting and yeah, beautiful. I don't know, like I would say the thing I like the most about my work is working with people from different countries, like people that have a different way of seeing the world, that have a different way of seeing the work. That I think that's the thing that I enjoy the most lately. being able to work with some director from Argentina, or a director from Japan, and an actor from the UK, and then an actress from Japan. That's fascinating, like, because at the end of the day, the work is the same, but the point of views and the stories and the energy and it is different. And I love that mix on set. I think that's really, really interesting.
I really love hearing all of that. And thank you so much for sharing all of this about your experience in working on the show, Luis.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you so much.